Next from Springfield, we attend a press conference with a representative of the BEST Coalition and a representative of AARP of Illinois, and hear why their organizations are opposed to the state offering a subsidy to the Exelon Corporation that they say will cost the state $1.6 billion over the next 5 years. This runs about 15 minutes.
Hi, everybody. Welcome. I'm Dave Lundy. I'm director of the BEST Coalition. We are a coalition of business, government, nonprofit organizations, individual businesses who have gathered together to fight the Exelon bailout proposal currently pending in Springfield. The rate impact from the proposal and the overall cost to Illinois ratepayers is what we're here to discuss today as we release the results of an independent study we had commissioned. I'm joined here today by our partners at ARP. And we have, BEST has numerous folks around the state who have gathered to fight this bailout. Let me talk about what the cost impacts are that we have found. The Exelon bailout is going to cost $295.2 million a year for 5 years and 5 months. That's a total of $1.599 billion. The firm we hired to do this work is a firm called Kessler Energy Consulting. Sean Kessler, the president, has worked for 25 years in the energy industry, including more than a decade at ComEd. What he found is rather disturbing. The bill is going to cost, as I mentioned, $1.599 billion. It's going to increase wholesale electric prices by approximately 8%. In both the ComEd and Ameren territories. But it's what the cost is going to be, not just to individuals, which ComEd has or Exelon has acknowledged, and we agree, is about $2 a month for the average household, but what it's going to cost the taxpayers in those communities. Because when you look at the effect on the city of Chicago and the entities of the city of Chicago, you're talking $13.8 million for the city. $6.96 million for Chicago Public Schools, $6.84 million for the state of Illinois. The Chicago Transit Authority, which is always down here looking for more money, it's going to cost them more than almost $5.5 million. The Water Reclamation District, $8.25 million. Cook County, $3.3 million. This is just money that we don't have. I mean, anybody paying attention to the budget hearing today, what the governor's talked about, what the mayor's talked about, understands that our governments around this state are strapped thin. We don't have more money to throw, and certainly not more money to throw at a very profitable corporation. So where does the money go? It goes straight to Exelon, and it's to pad their profits. Exelon claims that they are having problems with three of their nuclear plants, Clinton, Quad Cities, and Byron. And yet, Exelon just received last week $50 million for their Clinton nuclear plant from a downstate grid auction called the MISO auction. This has been well reported in the press. Exelon is spending millions of dollars on TV and radio and print and digital ads. All of you have seen it. Anybody who's got a TV or has looked at the newspaper has seen their wonderful glossy ads. And clearly they have enough money to be spending down here on their ads and on lobbyists and everything else. But in addition to the $50 million they got for Clinton, later this summer, the grid that contains the other 5 nuclear plants is going to have an auction, and thanks to rules that Exelon got tweaked, they're expected to receive hundreds of millions of additional dollars. Now, we've been telling legislators this all session, and yet the auction last week downstate proved that what we've been telling is true. This money is coming to these nuclear plants. They've got a bailout already. They don't need to double dip by asking Illinois ratepayers for more money, because the money that comes in those grid auctions, both the MISO grid auction and the PJM auction, comes from us. It comes from the ratepayers. That's the individuals, that's the businesses, it's the government units. So we're saying that it's time to stop. You know, they had enough money to spend $7 billion in cash to buy the Pepco utility out in Maryland. That's $7 billion. And interestingly, the Exelon CEO, Chris Crane, said in sworn testimony in front of regulators that some of their plants in Illinois are losing money, others are under-earning. I want to repeat that. He said they are under-earning. Well, I don't know about you, but I don't have extra money in my pocket to throw at their shareholders because they're under-earning. We say enough is enough. And at this time, I'd like to introduce Julie Volling from AARP. Julie?
Thank you, Dave. Good afternoon. My name is Julie Volling, and I serve as an Associate State Director with AARP. Today, I, along with some of our members here, are speaking on behalf of our 1.7 million members across the state. AARP stands along with the BEST Coalition and other groups in strong opposition to the Exelon bailout because of its potential impact on ratepayers across the state. Older adults spend a greater share of their income on utility costs than they do on other necessities, such as health care or even property taxes. Average utility expenditures for households headed by people over the age of 65 increase at a rate faster than inflation. This is according to a 2013 AARP Public Policy Institute study. On average, individuals 65 and older spend 12% of their fixed incomes on utility costs, and that percentage actually increases if the individual lives below the poverty line. Exelon's bailout bill only means one thing: higher rates for Illinois consumers. Exelon's bailout bill does not create more clean energy, does not reduce CO2 emissions, and does not create new jobs. But it will force Illinois consumers to pay more for Exelon's already profitable plants. Exelon posted over $2 billion in profit last year, while many Illinois consumers were struggling to pay their mounting bills. Exelon does not need a bailout. AARP has set up a toll-free number that will connect Illinoisans directly to their representatives. That number is 1-844-226-1189. We urge consumers across the state to call and get connected to their legislators and urge them to oppose the Exelon bailout bill. That number again is 1-844-226-1189. Thank you.
Well, let's remember how these plants were paid for initially. Unlike wind, solar, renewable companies, these plants were paid for by all ratepayers. They were paid for when Exelon was part of when Exelon and ComEd were an integrated utility. And all of these plants were paid for by all of us, and they are fully paid for. Now, I want to repeat that. These plants are fully paid for. So it's really interesting that now that their plants are fully paid for, they construct this legislation, and they claim it's a neutral market, open market, it's open to all forms of low-carbon energy. And yet the legislation specifically says you cannot qualify if you have a power purchase agreement longer than 5 years. By the way, that's how power plants and that's how renewable energy is paid for, with longer than 5-year power purchase agreements. You can't pay for it if it's in rate base. The states surrounding Illinois, every single one of them is a fully regulated state. Illinois is the only deregulated state. So all those projects are in rate base. Basically, they've excluded everybody from qualifying for this except for Exelon's nuclear plants. So it's interesting that Exelon likes to have it both ways. On the one hand, they say, well, it's not fair, we don't get compensated for our no-carbon energy, forgetting the fact that, in fact, the federal government still is going to pay for the decommissioning that we've all contributed into the fund. They pay for the Exelon nuclear insurance. The nuclear plants are well subsidized, thank you very much, significantly in excess of renewable energy. So we find that somewhat of a non-starter argument. Well, first of all, let's examine what they're claiming. The Exelon claim is that if you close all 3 nuclear plants, you will lose 8,000 jobs. What's interesting about that is that they've established this straw man, this phony straw man, that if they have one plant that fails, all 3 plants have to close and all these people are going to be thrown out of work. First of all, we don't believe that any of these plants are actually failing. Clinton got $50 million just last week. The other plants are expected to get somewhere, and the estimate is between $400 and $600 million. And that's ratepayer dollars. So we actually don't accept the premise. And what we find most interesting is that Exelon refuses to disclose to any independent experts what the real numbers are. In fact, the 1146 reports, the reports done by the 4 state agencies last year, very specifically said, we do not actually have real numbers for these power plants. We don't know whether they're making money or losing money. They estimated based upon some not very effective metrics. The only thing that we do know is that in their annual filings, Exelon's Illinois nuclear fleet is profitable. Cranes has reported this. They reported it months ago. They looked at those documents at the 10Ks. Exelon's Illinois nuclear fleet is profitable. And if Exelon wants to come to the General Assembly and wants to come to our ratepayers and ask us for more money, they owe it to us to show their books. Why should we take it on faith? They want a faith-based bailout. It's absurd.
Do you know where the Ronner administration is on this as they weighed in?
You know, we don't know exactly where they are. I suspect, based upon the rhetoric of the governor when he was running for office about improving the business climate in Illinois, that increasing the cost on business the way that these numbers are is not something he's going to be in favor of, but I wouldn't want to speak for the governor.
Dave, is it the EPA regulation that's 111D that's going to come into effect?
Yes.
And what impact might that have on power producers such as us?
That's a great question. The 111D clean power regulations, which will be coming into effect, each state is required to do a state implementation plan and talk about how they're going to reduce carbon in their state. The expectation of all experts is that that will raise the value of Exelon's nuclear plants and may raise the revenue to Exelon's nuclear plants as other plants are required to potentially shut down or shut down for a period of time. In any event, that's a great question because here you have yet another revenue stream that's going to be increasing for these plants. I mean, it's just really audacious at a time when everybody is struggling in this state, when our governments are struggling, when the folks behind me are all struggling, that Exelon, which made $2 billion last year, is coming to ask us for a bailout. There are market-based solutions that are coming their way, and we would.
Isn't it the 111 is going to require that you have no more than maybe 50%, if I have that right, from carbon-based emissions?
You know, Terry, every state has their own requirements for what they need to reduce. It's not, and that rule has not been finalized, as you know, so it's not clear yet exactly what the requirement is going to be. What is clear is that there are several ways to meet that standard, including building more renewables. And that's what, in fact, the 1146 reports, when they discussed options, one of the options was to increase investment in renewable energy.
Kentucky has 80% of its electric generation from coal. Might Exelon benefit by selling nuclear power on the spot market and therefore make money so that these other states could be buying that power from them? Is that how this might shake out?
You know, Exelon is very good at making money. I wouldn't presume to tell them how they want to make money the best. What I will say, though, is if they are unable to make money on their fully amortized, fully paid for Illinois nuclear fleet, perhaps they should sell the plants and put them on the open market and see if anybody wants to buy. You know, why is their first response always come down here to Springfield, talk to legislators and say, please, sir, I'd like some more? It's time to say enough is enough.
You're watching the Illinois Channel, an independent nonprofit corporation formed to provide gavel-to-gavel coverage of Illinois state government and other public affairs events taking place across Illinois.